So we did already the 7 Aleph of the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch. We're going to go through the Pesach Tshuva. All right, the Pesach Tshuva basically is like the Mishnah Brura, so to speak, of the Shulchan Aruch. At least, it's probably an Aruch Chaim also, but an Aruch Chaim with Mishnah Brura. On Yora Deah, we have the Pesach Tshuva, and he's basically like the Mishnah Brura. He's from the early 1800s. He wrote his name was Eisenstadt, Rab Tzvi Hirsch Eisenstadt, and he was in Lita, and he wrote this amazing work where he basically compiled all these other poskim when it came to the Shulchan Aruch, and he doesn't really paskin much. He just brings them all down. So I guess a little confusing, but we'll go through it because I think this is what the shiur is gonna have. So at least we get some familiarity with it, and then by the shiur, hopefully we'll understand at least what the Rav is talking about. So nice and like Kabbalah. So so now his first one he starts with in 7 Aleph is the first thing he comments on is nice and like Kabbalah, and he gives him Kabbalah. In other words, the Ramah says that you have to have Kabbalah on for a shaychet. So now he's going to talk about that. So nice and like Kabbalah. So ayin b'simla chadasha. So look at the simla chadasha. Kosav b'medinais elu, that in these places she'ein shaychin b'li Kabbalah. No one is a shaychet if you don't have Kabbalah. Im avar shaychet b'li Kabbalah. So if, let's say, he transgressed and he didn't have Kabbalah and he used a shaychet, even though shehu mumcha or muchzak, even though he's expert and he has chazakas of kashrus, mikol makom shchita asura, his shchita is still asur. Va'ayim b'shuva b'ris Avram shachaylik alav, that he's chaylik on this, and he says Allah de'in asur di'avid, and it includes that it should not be forbidden b'di'avid. L'chachil, of course, he shouldn't do it, but b'di'avid it's fine. So ayin b'shuvas he says over there, b'sefer shedarim by eza bale batim, in a place in the kfar shedarim by eza bale batim. You have a village that a lot of bale batim are living. V'tamid musakim eitzlem shaychet ubaydik, and they always keep among them a person who is a special shaychet and a special baydik, a person who inspects. When it comes close to Yom Tov for Pesach and Nafal, Lemishkav, and closer to he fell ill. So the echad min habalabatim mumcha v'yada hilchas shchita, and one of the balabatim is a mumcha and he knows hilchas shchita. Rak shemaylam loy shachat v'loy badak v'loy natal kabbalah. Except he never did a shchita, he never did a bdika, and he never got kabbalah. The question is if he's allowed to go ahead and shecht. Then he answers, Shemitzad din mutter l'shchait. It's mitzad din he's allowed to shecht. Because it's a pressing need and it's covered Yom Tov. Libi, but in my heart, mahasis l'sahatir b'doyrois lalu. It's very difficult for me to find a heter in our generations, even in such a situation where you have a small village and the sheikhet goes sick. Shekvar gadol mashchala v'chulu, because the stumbling blocks are very great. Umiyu, I guess he means that there's a lot of halachas and it's very easy to fall, and very easy not to go kalacha. Umiyu, Rishai lishchait leifais. However, it's mutter obviously to shecht birds. She'ain tzarach v'dika asariya, because we don't check the lungs. Eitzel sheichet debaite kachayla. Otherwise,
some people that don't check the lungs even by an animal.
That's correct. Yeah, it's correct. So he's going to get to that. But he's saying for sure birds is no problem, because birds you don't have to check anyway. It's an easier shchita, so therefore it doesn't really require someone to be a special shoichet, to be a special inspector. Sharei b'kahai gavna yesh matirin.
Again, what does he say about Eitzel Shoichet the way they got choila?
Oh, Eitzel Shoichet, in other words, in that which would require a shoichet and a baidik that is sick. In other words, we this situation is talking about where the guy is either the baidik or the shoichet, or maybe it's both, and he's sick. So he's saying is you don't require that. You don't require this guy who's sick to be around because you don't check the lungs anyway. So therefore,
Yeah.
anyone really, a balabas could go ahead and do the shchita. Sharei b'kai good. Sharei b'kai
Yeah.
gavna yesh matirin lechatchila. For such a case, there are authorities who we say that permit it even lechatchila. Uchvod yamtif v'vaday shari, and for kvod yamtif certainly it should be allowed. What you can do, the whole entire village should not have meat for yamtif, especially not to have chicken. Vafilu im yesh lahem basar, even if they already have meat. Rak shahu maloyach yoser mishnei yamim, but it was already sitting in salt for 2 days. So salted meat can last, but once it's already 2 days old, it's not good. It's not patam meat. It's not getting fresh anymore. It might still be good enough to eat, but it's not fresh. And since there was no joy in it, therefore we should give him rishus that he should be able to shecht even meat.
These are birds, right? These are
No,
birds.
even meat. He's talking about he's going now to Basar. Even going to Basar, you have a sick shaykhit. Oh, sorry, he's still talking about bird. He's still talking about bird. Yeah. He's still talking sure bird. And
Yeah, but,
you know.
if you're talking about birds, he said some people hold it's like chatchila. So it's like chatchila. Obviously, you can check even if you still have meat.
Correct. Even if you still have meat, then you should still be allowed to have one of the balabatim to go ahead and shecht.
Why does he say only if the meat is like bad, it's a little old? Because if it's a chatchila, you should always be able to.
Because he's saying, because if you have meat on hand, then it's better. He's still saying it's still better for them to use that meat.
The chatchila means that even in the first
But
pan, it's
chila
still good.
means in the best scenario. B'diavad means okay after the fact we're going to allow it. The
Right, so
question
if
is
it's the best
l'chachila.
scenario, you can do it. Then, if it's in the best scenario, you can do it. Like he says, well, says v'chai gavna yesh matir on the chatchila. So if it's like chatchila, then even if the meat's not old, you should be able to do it.
He says there are those that allow it l'chachila, and for you to cover yomtiv. And he says, and he's quoting them, even if they have meat, then they're still saying since there's no simcha and yomtiv, so therefore they allow it.
Mm.
And it says, and he'll explain, he'll get the akasha. But Afagav, you know, the kaimelan that we learned, the ein yotze yidei simcha sachag bibasar oifos, and even though you don't really fulfill your simcha of chag with bird meat, mikol makom adif tvei, it's better mi basar malayach yashan. It's better than old salted meat. V'wadin the shar lishchait behema, and the same should apply to submit to shecht even a behema, even an animal. Rak she'im yaralai shum shinoi. Even though there might be a shinoi, an abnormality, v'shum safek b'dika saria, or a doubt can arise regarding the b'dika ria, the lung inspection, right? Ve'ein aimrim lehachoyla lehetfel leman bezet yitroif. Because therefore the sick person, it's impossible for the sick person to deal with it and to check while he's sick. Therefore, there has to be a treif. Sorry?
No, what is the alfal stand for?
The efshar, and it's impossible.
Oh.
The efshar lahachoyla lehetfel. It's not possible for the choyla to palpate it. Leman bezeh yitroif. Therefore, it has to be that it's considered treif. Ki vadai bebedika tzarech aymar yad avaregel v'haragesh, because inspection certainly requires someone who's skilled with his hands. He's experienced and he's able to have argasha. He's able to feel it. He knows what it feels like. Yesh lachmir by tvei mishchita, and therefore we have to be even stricter, even with shchita itself. So ayin sham. So you can see over there. So he's saying that in a situation that it could go so far, this need for a couple. Oh, 1 second. People coming in. Hold on a second. He's saying that that thing with Kabbalah could go so far that even before Yom Tif, it could be a problem, and you maybe have to only rely on shechting birds. The sheichet shaloi shachat ma'elam ein l'shchait l'chatchila b'Yom Tif. Ayin Sham, that it should be that and the Shvus Yaakov says that a person who never slaughtered before should not slaughter l'chachila before Yom Tif. But yeah, but okay, be fine. L'chachila, he shouldn't do it.
By only by Yom Tov. You think even
He's
by Yom
not
Tov?
only, but he's not only by Yom Tif. He's saying in this scenario, in a
Even.
situation where it's important to have meat. Clearly, he shouldn't do it
Yeah.
when it's not Yom Tif.
Al-Khayr.
Even if it's Yom Tif, and even if you need meat for
Al-Khayr by
everybody, you
Yom
need
Tov.
meat. It's still be a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, Sheyaydebai. So someone who knows him. So Ayin Behertiv, see the Behertiv. Umashakasav, he wrote Yachol Ha'av Lismaich
He's
as
somewhere.
Benai. Sorry,
He's somewhere Yom Tov. Somewhere Yom Tov.
why did he question?
Well, it's me tell him we're up to.
Oh, we're up to the second. Oh, yeah, the new person who came in. Yes, I just see eyes. We're up to the next. We're doing the Pischei Tshuva, and we're up to the second Pischei Tshuva, Shiadabai. So the Pischei Tshuva, as we explained, is like a little Mishnah Brura. It's not like a little Mishnah Brura. It's similar to the Mishnah Brura on the Shulchan Aruch, and we don't have the Mishnah Brura on Yora Deah, so we have the Pischei Tshuva. He basically brings a conglomerate of a whole bunch of poskim. We're getting people are finishing their parties. They're coming to join. Okay, for those who joined, again, we're up to the second Pischei Tshuva Shiadabai. Okay, Ayin Beher Itiv. So he says the Pischei Tshuva says. So look at the Beher Itiv regarding this. Okay, sorry, Umi Masha Amrim Yachol Ha'av Lismaich as B'nai Kuhulu, and he wrote that what he wrote that a father could authorize his son. In other words, you don't. This is not like a din of edus. A father could say, I'm giving Kabbalah to my son." So as long as you know it, and Chayin Kasav over there is Panamiris. So Ugdula Mizu, and even more than this, the Afilu Im bid Bidikohu Matsuhu Sha'alidei Hilcha Shchita. That even if they examined him and found him that he does not know Hilchas Shen Yodea Hilchas Shchita, does not know Hilchas Shchita. Also, like the Ramah says, the Im Loinatol Kabbalah, the Isrin Kol Hakelim Lafreya, that Ramah wrote that if he did not know, he never got Kabbalah, then all his stuff beforehand is going to be treif lemafreya, because we don't assume that a mistake he did now was just now. If he never had Kabbalah, it goes all the way back. Regardless, in the case that we're dealing with, Sha'aviv Mayid Shehi Baki, if a father testifies that he's a Baki, Sha'amrinan Hashta who the Isra Vilamad V'Shachach. We say that only now, if he made a mistake, did he deteriorate and he forgot what he learned. And all his kalim
Even
from
if he didn't
before
have
are still going to
Kabbalah?
be good. What? Pardon?
But why do you? He's saying the father counts as Kabbalah. What is he saying
Correct.
by even the father?
He's saying even if it's the father that's saying that he knew what he was talking about, so then you don't have the din that everything lemafrei is also puzzle. You could believe the father when he says he had Kabbalah from the father, and that everything that maybe if he made a mistake, everything that going forward is bad, but everything lemafreya is fine. If you can, I'm sorry. If you can ask a question after I finish a phrase, when you do it when I'm in the middle of a phrase, it gets confusing. I apologize. But okay. Okay. So the ayim b'shuvas over there shekasav the mikol makom l'chafila yesh lita al kapala. That really l'chafila one still has to get kapala. Me'achas she'enai kroivai. From someone who's really not a relative. Ayin Sham, and see over there. Va'ayinoid b'shal t'chuvas, see over there by the base lachem. When he wrote over there. Okay. Ubaki. Now go to the next one. Ubaki biyad, and he's skilled with his hand. So Ayinoid the Shuvas Novi Yehuda. This is Shuvas Novi Yehuda. Shekasav b'shoichet sheyadai marsisim. They wrote that a person who has hands that tremble. V'amnam, who margesh mevgi is daka, but yet he still claims that when he checks a knife, he could feel a nick in the knife. So in other words, he's able to control his hands even though his hands shake. V'gam oimer bari loy she'enai nichshol b'shum davar. And he also says that he's certain that he didn't stumble on anything in this matter. Ki ein hisrisus mazik loy, because the trembling doesn't harm him, so therefore he's able to control it or overcome it. Devada yesh lahavir hashoichet hu lechatchila. That certainly such a person should be removed. He should be removed as a shoichet l'chatchila. So we shouldn't allow a guy, even if he says he can control his trembling, we shouldn't allow him to be a shoichet l'chatchila. Aval ein oisrin shchita l'mafreya, right? But his shchita is not going to be usher l'mafreya. It's not going to be usher retroactively. Deloy gar and may shadarkai l'satef l'salif. For it's no worse than a guy who says, like, I usually faint, but I did not faint. Like we spoke about it in Sif Gimel. The im amar bari li kasher. If he says, I'm certain that it's kasher, and then hashach sham, and then shach says over there, the mekel af bishoisik, even if he doesn't say anything, he shechs and he basically gives it over to be kosher. It doesn't say that he's certain. We don't ask him, even if he's quiet, so it still should be allowed. But he says the Taz Beersheva, he gives usher b'shoisek. It's usher when the guy is quiet. Avol mumor barili. But if he says that he's ba'omer barili, but he says I'm certain, then kosher. Then he says kosher. All right. So the Isra. So let's say he deteriorated. And he made a mistake, and now we see that he made a mistake. So the Behektev over there, and also the Chuvas. So Masha Kasav Tavach Shemachar Chulu, and what he wrote regarding a butcher, Ayin Bahag Sham Le'inyan Akelim, and also look over there regarding regarding utensils. Shezashel Bahem Basar, that in which meat was cooked. Shenikach min hataveach hazel l'mafreya, and this one cooked. This one took the meat and he cooked it l'mafreya. And you have to see what he wrote about over there. He doesn't give his answer over here. Shepasak b'shoichet sheshalu aisai, that if you rule regarding a shoichet and you ask him al beheman be'er shachat badek im hayekshera, and you ask him regarding whether he shechted it and he inspected it, whether it's kosher. The Amar lefnei edim shakshera'i, and he says, no, it was kosher. I'm testifying that it's kosher. V'achar moitzi sarkel gedol, and we see that he made a large adhesion. I guess we're going to learn what that means. A large adhesion that apparently makes it. It's a sign that it was not shechted properly. Shenitref al yidei sarkazu, and this large adhesion would make it that it's a treifa. Therefore, we don't remove him because he has a reason to say that possibly they did it. Let's say he did it. He acted unintentionally. He has an excuse. Umachmas kasher, and the reason, and he did it with very haste. Kasher matzui hu mikshal kazet. And such a stumbling block sometimes happens when a guy does it very fast. It's very possible that you can mess up. Not even a person who's a mumcha and a mukzak, he can mess up. If he does things fast, he does things in a way that's he was not careful. The tavach, that even though when it would come to a butcher, shiatza treifa, that's trying to give out treifa meat, right? So mitoich yadai, from his hands, ein loy in zaslos loymar shoygeg. So he doesn't have an excuse to say that I did it, that I was a shoygeg, that I did it by mistake, like we see that was written later on. Shani hacha, it's different. Diesh shoychet hochach v'umdum, because the shoychet has a proof. He has something to say. He did circumstantial evidence for this. That if he wanted, he could have said that he did it, that he did it intentionally. If he wanted to say that he didn't, if you want to say that he did it intentionally, he could say that that you could say that what he'd do is he would detach the meat would then have this cut in it, and it would never be noticed. The fact that he left it there, the fact that he left it for inspection, the
Like
fact that we could
illegal.
look at it afterwards shows that this guy is saying kosher. Because if he wanted a dafka, do it purposely, that he made him that to make it treif, he would have removed it. Or if he made a mistake, he doesn't know what he's doing, and he realized that, oh my gosh, this looks terrible, he could remove it. The fact that he left there, and he says that he did it by mistake, clearly it shows that he did it by mistake, or he did it very fast, and he's not considered someone who stumbled, and we should consider everything going forward that he doesn't have Kabbalah anymore. The Hevi Dar Marshal, Shekasav Svarazu, who also says the same exact thing over here. Because of Void, and he also wrote, Ach Bishar Sharav Ha'ir, that if there is a Rav of the city, Haviroi Momdom Ginegin Milsa, that should remove him, that should remove him, or could have removed him as a preventative measure. Umitzinu Shagodlai Rishonim Shaviru Shoichet Al Shloishim Yaim. I find that there are great early Rishonim that removed a Shoichet for 30 days when a person would make a mistake. That if a shaychet did something that's not good, it was by improperly you're not accepting the Rav's decree. It is fitting also to say that all the kalim that he cooked in, after we see this wrong shchita, that also it should be kashered afterwards. Then we see over here for Ayin B'shuva Snoid of Yehuda Shekasav B'shoichet Sha'aiz Neged Harav, that a person who acts like an Azus Panim in front of the Rav, in other words, he doesn't accept what the Rav is telling him. V'asar Harav as a Shchita, and the Rav asks his Shchita. So this is going to be very interesting. So you're supposed to always be makabel the Rav of the city, right? You have to makabel what the Rav of the city or a bezin of the city, what they say. But here comes an interesting thing regarding whether or not you're makabel it. It's interesting. He says like this. Let's say there were some bali batim who erred and they did not accept the Rav's decree against the shaychet. They said, you know what, we are going to eat from the shaychet. The Rav said, no, too bad, we don't hold like the Rav. We're going to eat from the shaychet anyway, because the shaychet always shechs like the great meat. So we're gonna agree with him. And they eat from his shchita. And let's say after that the Rav died. So yesh lahafsik. So now we have a suffix. Im habasar shenishar mishchitasai. Any basar that's left over from the shaychet b'chai harav mutter achshav. Let's say this guy shechted meat on Tuesday morning and the Rav dies Tuesday night. So there's meat left over from the shaychet Tuesday night that was left over from when the Rav was actually alive. The Efchar Shepekeh She'isser L'mafreya, is it possible, let's say, is it possible to say that you're Aseret L'mafreya? In other words, back to when the Rav was still alive, back when he said this guy is not allowed to shecht. Linyan Akalim, regarding also the utensils that they might have been cooked in. L'Aiser Shalai Kibel Divrei Harav Mutarim. Those who were not mikabel the Rav's words and ate from this guy, it's still permitted. To them, it's permitted. The Kevon Shema Paka Iser Meshoichet V'Gam Mekalim. Since once he died, the prohibition was removed, both for the Shoichet and from his Shchita and from the Kalim. So in other words, the decree only lasted for the life of the Rav. The Rav died, and this meat and this Kalim was cooked while the Rav was still alive. However, it could be that once the Rav died, now the Isser goes away, and everything that he was Usser also goes away L'mafreya, especially to those that would eat by the Shoichet and did not accept the Rav's words while the Rav was alive. So La'ach La'isr Shekibel Dvei Harav, but those that accepted the words of the Rav, Harezek Kamay Neder. It's like a neder. It's like they makabel themselves a neder. The yei suffik ima kabbalah hayu k'may basar v'yayin, and it's a doubt whether or not it's like accepting, chumras regarding meat and wine, and this is explained later on. V'asar b'netilas tam, and it's forbidden, whether the meat or the wine imparts flavor, right? Regarding those halachas, l'kein nech kelim, chav dal shois, and therefore we should leave any of the kalim that they may have been cooked to these things. We should leave it 24 hours. The rule is that the minimum to leave to kash something, you have to leave something out 24 hours. Don't use it. Obviously, it has to be washed clean. Then don't use it 24 hours. Then we consider it to be like a begam. Anything that's any time that's left in the keli is considered like a begam, and then you could kasher it, and you could use the kalim again. Some people are more machmer and they say you have to wait a full year, but the 24-hour rule is the basic minimum for hilchos kashrus. So he brings it over here. Also, maybe that should be the same thing. It was sort of like a neder, and they accepted the issue like a neder, and therefore they can't eat from it. The Isra Rav, if you accepted it, should be the same thing. It's interesting that there's no punishment, so to speak, for the people who went against the Rav. So tzarchian. I don't understand why there's no kanas, so to speak, for these people. They go against the Rav. Now they're allowed to eat because they didn't hold by this Rav. We're not talking about these days where everyone has their own Rav. These days when everyone has their own Rav, you have your own Rav. Okay, you don't hold of that Rav. You hold of a. You have to hold of something, right? You can't just hold of make mikulas from everywhere. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do chumash from everywhere. You know that. But back then, when you had a town and you had one Rav of the town telling you what is. It's interesting. All right. Tzarchian. I'm Shuvas Zaka, but Shuvas Besam Roish, Bahagas, the Yora Deah, Ubishuvas Privigadim, blah, blah, V'chasav Keser Kuna, the base of Ephraim, and the Chassam Sofer. Okay. Sha'irku Benyan said that they elaborate more on, I guess, here we go. That answers my question. I look at all these sources. They'll elaborate on this, and hopefully give an answer to this. Maybe my question comes up. Sha'Allah harbe chidush dinim bedin sheichet sheyatza treifa. They introduced many different chidushim regarding the laws of a sheichet who brings out not kosher meat. And in several matters he disagrees with Achrayim. And therefore, since it's not so common, it's not so common. Therefore, he's not going to elaborate. Go look for yourself. But this is not a very common situation. So if it does happen, we know where to look. But if a person, let's say, did not take, he didn't go ahead and get Kabbalah. So, ein the shach. So look at the shach. The sheichet shehamir shehaitzi treifa mitoch yad pshia. That if a sheichet who was he did against halacha and he produced something that was not kosher through negligence, yesh lahatil mafreya. So could we permit it retroactively? So ein the taz v'chein das had taz bar sheva. V'ayin shahuchach kedasa poiskin, that who proved that according to the das of the poiskin, the bechashud ein tzarech lechosh l'mafreya. When you have a suspicion about somebody, there's no need to be concerned retroactively. It's only whenever you do have a concern about somebody's kashrus, it's only here going forward. It doesn't go l'mafreya. And the Chayin Kasef, the Mayim Rabim, that Ach B'Saif Hashuvas Ksav L'Chalak, that at the end he wrote that to be Chalak on this, he says something different. Bein Choshed B'Mezid the Oxda Yayetza L'Ma'avir Al Das, that one who's you suspect that he did things intentionally, that maybe impulse seized him and he went against the halacha. We do not suspect him again retroactively. Masha ein kan be'im asa kain machmas atzlois, and even more so if a guy did something regarding laziness. He made a mistake. He was just lazy or whatever it is, and he did a mistake. So we don't suspect him retroactively. Garatvei, and it's much worse. V'yesh lachosh al l'mafreya, and the one was concerned retroactively. Actually, he says laziness is different. He says laziness. You have to be concerned retroactively because a person made a mistake on doing something that happens. People sometimes they make mistakes, but if a person is lazy, shows that he's just lazy, that we worry about. Maybe that's a systemic problem. Interesting. V'chein Allah b'shuvas bris Avram, and so too the same with the b'shuvas Rav.
What
Was there a
was
question?
stomach problem?
Pardon?
You said that it's a simon that he has a stomach problem or something.
No, not a stomach problem. Sorry, a systemic problem. Systemic. In other words, the person who's lazy. It's then we worry about that. Perhaps maybe it's been a problem all the time. Like he's always, he just doesn't give his, Shchita takes finesse. It takes dedication. So a person is just showing that he doesn't want to do halacha because he's just lazy. So then maybe he's, according to them, it's possible you could in that situation go l'mafreya. You look backwards also.
Mm-hmm.
Valtilak hanirli shamatza b'shuvas mayim rabim, and we find I found such a distinction also. Not me, the Pesach Shuv found such a distinction in the mayim rabim. Kasav the yesh ladan alav, and he says it requires analysis. Ayin tzarchin. Okay. Treifa. So then if he doesn't have Kabbalah and he makes mistakes, then it's treif. Kasa b'shuvas beis Yaakov, Jordan beis Yaakov, demad asiran shechitasa l'mafreya hu vada yaser. That the fact that we make that his shchita, we make it asur l'mafreya, that it's for sure that it's asur. Kevan dehave tarsi l'reyasai, since it involves a double. It's two. It involves two mistakes or two deficiencies. Hashoichet Isra behema b'chezres yadai. The shoichet was disqualified, and the animal is the animal itself is also under presumption of being prohibited. Vayin sham shenishol b'shoichet shaba lifnei bezdin v'hivada. That one who was asked before Bezdin, and he came before Bezdin and he confessed. Sha'afal pi haroiv shachat b'shikras. That he said, I did most of my shechting when I was drunk. Umach mazeh loy shachat kuroi, and therefore I did not shech properly because I was drunk. So v'asa kama pa'amim dvarim hapsulim b'shchita, and he did several times that he did it that his now his he made psulas out of his shchita, that his shchitas were not good. Shaisi darsa by, let's say, like for instance, he shahia, he did shahia, which is delay, or darso, or he did extra pressure, hulu, or the 5 laws of shchita. Uvikesh mehem lahayrai slai seder tshuva, and he asked them to, and then he asked them to instruct him, because he wants to do tshuva alamaisem rayim shasa, and all the things bad that he did. Uma dina shel habasar vashumin, and regarding the din of the meat and the fats sheyesh shadai and mishkatos sheichet that still remain from his slaughters, the Heishuv Laheter, and he said that these are still mutter. So the guy did something and made a mistake, and then he goes in front of Bezdin. He says, "Oh, I did it because I was drunk, or because of something, because of a lapse of mind, or something else." And then he also says, "I want to learn. I want to make sure that I get better at this." So that stuff is still considered kosher. And I guess it's not Lafreya. It's only going to be that he shouldn't go forward as a sheikh until he does get proper instruction. The inay nema and mishum the in adam mishum atzmai Russia, because we don't believe someone who says that himself that he's a Russia. When a person says about himself that I'm a Russia, we don't believe him. So a person who comes to do tshuva, it must be the taka. It was a mistake. It was unintentional. And really he knows what he's doing, and maybe Hitaka was drunk, or some other circumstance made him not do it well. Bisha Shai Meres derech tshuva zinsa. So now we're going to say the same thing regarding, like, he just goes on a tangent and he says same thing with a woman who says that when if she confesses that she stepped out on her husband, v'chein bizvada habayel, and also the person she did a sin with, he also comes to confess and says they did it. If they did it by the way of repentance, that made atzmai rasha. The principle of a person does not make himself a rasha does not apply. Hevi sham sham ria Indian zet, but and because they did not bring any proof regarding this. And also you have to look at it in Taisus and Bav Metzia, that Masha Mirza under the whatever Taisus Masha Yimsa over there that he says okay. So he says Shekasav Dimidivrei Hataisves She'em Ein Ria that he wrote that there's no proof from and then you also see the Chassam Sofer says there's no proof from Tais over there. Achevi Sham Raya Acheres, but he brought another proof from somewhere else. And so that these other responses go on. It's a tangent. If it also applies to other Averis, but we're not talking about other Averis, so it's out of our scope. And then he brings a whole bunch of other places. Okay. So then he says the im loy for he did not definitely rule that the person whether he's believed bevada derech tshuva when he confesses by way of repentance. So the ach is vada b'chelav, and maybe he was maybe he did it when he was confessing because he's sick because he's sick, so therefore he's as confession. Okay, Ein Sham regarding other affairs over there. So Shuv Matzasi B'Shal Teshuvas Shiva Sian. Later on, I found out in the Shal Teshuvas of Shiva Sian by Mehara Gruv Rabbi Landau, and he goes on Sha'arech Be'inyan Kizeh, who elaborates on such a thing, and he says he'll bring the Dvarim later. And he says also, so according to his Vedata, according to his Rim, Gam Kain, that in such a case that Loi Sha'amar that Ein Adam Maybe Atzmai Russia, that a person does not make himself wicked. He also says that situation does not apply. The Eish Aser Kol Habasar Sheish Dayin Benyan, that one must forbid the meat but still remains intact. The Gam Kli Rishain Habaleya V'Vasar Zeh, and also any Kli Rishain that he used to deal with the meat. So I guess this Rabbi Landau argues and says that a person could be made Rosh Atzmain himself even by Hilchas Shchita. Venera, and it seems the Afa Divrei Hagayin, this is the Givat Shol. Dafka im Amar Sha'asa Dvarim Hapsulim. This applies even if he did acts to make it possible. Shchita Midiraisa in an Eman. When it comes to Diraisa, he's not believed. Aval im Amar Sha'asa Dvarim Hapsulim Midrabanan Yesh Laser. But if he did it by things that are only Aser Midrabanan, then it's considered that there will be a psul. Rabbanan Adam, according to Rabbanan Adam, he could say that Russia that he could make himself say that he actually is a he made Atzmai Russia. He's able to make himself say that he did something bad when it comes to Rabbanan. Sha'arach l'chakai alav, and the Bris Avram elaborates on this. For Allah, the after Rabbanan ein adam made Atzmai Russia. Even according to Rabbanan, you can't testify yourself that you're Russia. So whenever a person comes to Bezdin and says I made a mistake and I want to do better, we always assume he intended well and he didn't do it out of any sort of bemazed and intention, and therefore it was only a mistake. Imkain gam b'zeh yesh lahater. Therefore, there's room to permit his to permit the meat and also permit anything from the Caleb. Anyway, Efshar to Im Amar Sha'asa Shahaya Mishu Kvi. Nevertheless, it's possible to say that he committed, let's say he committed a Shahiyah, even a Mashahu, even a small amount, like this. She'ein Isser Barer Yesh Lisser. When the Isser is not Barer, then this we still could sorry, the she'ein ha'isira bar, even when the isser is not bar yesh l'asr, it's still considered to be asr. And ayin sham, that source. Okay. So let's say a person was asked whether or not something was mut. He said what the halacha was, and he says that it was asr. Sorry, he says something that was mutter that was asr. In other words, they ask him this huge gash that's in the neck. What is that? He says, oh, it's mutter. And even though we know that halacha is that it's asr. So what do we do with this guy? So the be'er so I'm be'er hetev, the af ba'amar al mutter asr, and also the other way around. Even if he says something that's mutter, he says that it's asr. Gam kein yesh lahavira. We should also remove him, even if he makes a mistake that way. Sham, that the Bris Yaakov Kasavatam, that the Yesh Lachosh, that we have to be concerned, that Shiyavai Kilkul Im Yigdash by Isha, that damage is going to come if he tries to be Mekadesh and Isha with such a thing. Because the Kivan Isser Loi Haya Shava Pruta Hulu, that something that's Usser is not even worth a Shava Pruta. So if a person makes a mistake and says that something is mutter is usher, you have to be chayshed. Also, the problem is that let's say he might take this meat that he thinks is mutter, and really it's usher. He might take this meat and he might go to a woman and say, that you are mekadosh me with this meat. And the problem is that meat is not a sharpruta because anything that's usher has no value. Interesting. Then he brings something else from the Pri Megadim. Okay, so it's evident from his words. The af, the hatois, einai mipas shechah, that even though it happened, the mistake happened due mipas, mipas, I don't know what that is. Oh, meifis shechah, in a situation of forgetfulness. Rak machmas shiklai daitai shechanera b'daitai hamishuveves. Rather, it was a lapse in judgment. So therefore, it appeared that he didn't understand, even though it was a small lapse in judgment. Really, he does know, but he got under pressure or he made a mistake, and it appeared like he didn't know. Gam kein meish laviri ad sheyachzer boy. So we have to remove him until he retracts and he's able to answer the questions properly and know what he's talking about, even if it was like a lapse of judgment. Venera, and it seems the yesh nafkamina bain elu habeis ta'am, and there seems to be to me a nafkamina between these two different reasons. All the two reasons. Okay, there's two reasons. I guess he's saying the difference between saying mutter ad usher and usher mutter. The one must be concerned damage result in. I read through this. I didn't really understand it before. I'm not sure. I think he's talking about there's a practical difference between whether we consider it that he knows that he made a momentary lapse, or we consider that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, okay. Oh no, it's mutter usher mutter. Okay, sorry. Now whether the difference is whether he says on something that's usher is mutter, that's one problem, or he says on something that's mutter is usher is another problem. Okay, al mutter shehu usher midrabanan. So if he says something that's mutter, that it's now usher midrabanan. And he brings to the Ber Yaakov, and he brings from Sachem, and the Pri Megadim. Deha ein Thailand miyadai deina Isser Ela Rabbanan. If we don't say that anything hangs on it. There's something that is only rabbinically that only is Asr Midrabanan. So in other words, there's no if the guy says Asr Midrabanan, there's no real problem in what he's saying. So he says he wants to do an extra chumrah. It's not a real problem. V'chein im amar al Isra Rabbanan. If he says something Isra Rabbanan, shehu min atayra who behefech. And likewise, he says that something that's Asr Rabbanan, he says that the Torah is the one that makes it Asr, or vice versa, or something that's Asr Torah, and he says Rabbanan made it. That's not a big mistake to make. If he makes that such a mistake, that's not such a problem. He knows basically that it's Asr or Mutter. He just doesn't know the source. That's not a big problem. So Amnam, however, that Kvar Cholke Malav Chaveroi Al Minchas Yaakov, but the Chaver of the Minchas Yaakov already were Cholek on him, as he's going to elaborate. V'Allah the Toilin Af Bedavar Asr Medabanan, and he says that if you hang something on a davar that's Asr Medabanan, that's right. Lefizeb. But that you can have a situation. But Omer al Rabbanan Shehu min Torah. He says that our big vision is from the Torah. Ein chashish. He's not. We're not concerned about that. We're not concerned if a guy gets the location of the Isser wrong. That's fine, as long as he knows that it's Asr. That's fine. We're not worried about that. Ach ba'ifin habez, and also in the second scenario where he thinks that's mutter asr, so choshesh l'shnehem. So then there's a concern regarding both, whether he thinks that something is mutter regarding, and we know it's asr, whether or not it's mutter b'ratayr and it's asr b'rabanan, but mutter then we're choshesh. V'yesh machmir and v'surin, and there are those that are stringent and are machmir and are asr on him. Okay, so I think that's what we got up to last time I think that's it. So I think that's what we got up to last time in the Shulchan Aruch regarding reading it. So I'm going to stop here, and next Tuesday we're going to go back to the Shulchan Aruch, read the last simanim of the Shulchan Aruch Siman Aleph, last seifim of the Shulchan Aruch Siman Aleph, and then we'll do the Piskei Teshuvos on those as well. Good?
Yes, thank you very much. Quick
Yeah,
question,
thank you.
Yes.
if I may. So I know that maybe it's not going to apply to what you just mentioned, but there is a saying that to say no, it's very easy. You know, whatever is asur, whatever is mutar to say asur is very easy, but whatever is mutar, the other way around, whatever is asur to say mutar, you need to have a lot more knowledge. So it looks like we're not following that logic here with this Gemara.
So you're saying it's a lot harder to say something is mutter when it's asur.
Yeah. So the one who says asur to everything, he, even if it's mutar, he may say asur, and it's very easy because
Right. So we're saying
you don't have to have much knowledge on that. But to say that is mutar, you have to really know a lot of things.
Yes, but you have to be right. But you can't say mutter when it's in fact asur. You have to say mutter when it's mutter, and if he says mutter when it's mutter, there's no problem. Even if he says it's mutter midrabanan, but really it was mutter midiraisa, he wasn't really sure where the heter came from. As long as he knew that it was heter, as long the source doesn't make a difference so much. The problem is going to become clearly if he says on something that's asur, he says that it's mutter. Some go further and say what you say, that if a guy makes a mistake and even says that something that's asur, something that's mutter, he says that it's asur also. So we learned that according to some sources that the Piskei Teshuvah brought, that's also a problem. because it shows
Yeah.
also maybe he's not fully knowledgeable in everything if he's just saying usher and everything.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the person, I think you're right. The person's knee-jerk reaction when questioned, right? You did a shchita, people come over to you and go, "What do you say about that? What do you say about this? What did you do? What's halacha?" The knee-jerk reaction is say it's usher. Yeah, I'm safe. If I say usher, I'm safe, right?
Yeah.
Then they can't accuse me for trying to matter meat. That's strafe. But that's also not good. You have to have a guy that knows what he's talking about. So I agree with you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Who
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
do we hold as the
All right.
halacha l'maisa?
Halach l'maisa really is which like Rabbi Lenky said, whichever achron you hold by. You have to gotta find the achron that you hold by, and then you find out. I guess we'll find out in the shiur what Rabbi Lenky thinks.
Yeah.
What he's going to teach us. Yeah. Have a good Chanukah,
Thank you.
everybody.
You too. Bye bye.
Yeah.